Stuff, stories about when you worked at IBM.
Well,
When you started there, why you started there.
with 34 years,
Where do you start?
and we were just talking about the end, retirement. It's funny. We were just talking about, Mark's thinking about retiring. Okay, you want to know how I went to work for IBM?
Kelly all wants to know. She says, you're the patriarch.
You got me on recorder?
She wanted to record some of you, yes. So now you're going to clam up.
Now I'm going to get closer to the
This is
microphone.
the Mueller investigation now.
When I went to work for Public Works, they asked me, the way the government works, it's not a one-on-one interview. It's a committee.
Mm-hmm.
Because nobody wants to be responsible for anything in government.
Right.
So I was in this, at the head of the conference room table, and there were 5 people, one at the end and 2 on each side, asking me questions. And after I got through with the interview, I went back down to court services and they said, how did it go? How'd your interview go out there? And I said, well, it was a strange interview because I'm not used to committee hiring me. I said, it was unusual. But when they handed me the microphone and said, you can sing, I sang. I said, I ran the meeting. Because here I was at the head of the conference room table. And they'd ask me a question, I'd ask them a question.
Like what?
Well, they wanted to know why the gas tax revenue would decrease. Okay? They asked me, why would the gas tax revenue decrease? And I said, well, it has to be consumption. Because it's so much a gallon. The people are selling fewer gallons of gas. Is it because of the demographics down? Is the population dropping? So is the population in Alaska County dropping? Are the gas prices too high and people are filling up in other counties before they drive through Alaska County? I was asking them questions. They didn't know. But when I went to work there, it went up. So I never had a problem where 1 month we had less revenue than the next month. But that was 35 years after IBM.
Why did you go work for IBM?
Okay, what happened was, and as I tell Kim, it's a short story, but I'll make it long. I got to go back. I came home for Christmas in 1953, and when I went to Jacksonville to see my true love, my girlfriend, they were looking at replacing people at the Florida Military District with military service people. So I saw that in the paper, and I went out and talked to the guy, the captain who was in charge of this. And I told him my MOS and what I did at Fort Jackson. And he said, we want you. You're exactly the kind of person we want to hire down here. So you go back and put in a request for transfer down here, and I'll approve it like that, and you'll be living in Jacksonville instead of in the Army. Well, before that, having been savvy with how it works in the military, I knew that if I had less than a year to go, I wouldn't have to go to Korea. Okay? So I needed to be on orders until I had less than a year to go. So I got on orders to go to Fort Benjamin Harrison School up in Indianapolis, Indiana, for the first part of '54. So then I would, after I finished that duty, I'd have less time and I wouldn't have to go overseas. So I'm on orders to go to Fort Benjamin Harrison, and I want to go to Jacksonville. Okay? So I'm in a dilemma. I get back to Fort Jackson in January, and I say, I don't want to go to Fort Benjamin Harrison. So my lieutenant said, okay, I'll get you off orders. So then I turned around and I put in a request for transfer to the Florida Military District.
Oh, that's right.
Odd as it may seem, the lieutenant didn't
Yeah.
like that.
We should ask him if he wants some food.
And so he
We
says,
did. Yeah, we
you're
fed the
going to
painter
go
the other
to
day.
Korea,
And he told Morel, he says, "Those-
which I did.
Those potatoes your mother made were out.
When I got back, got out of the service, and went back to Bradenton,
Oh, yeah.
I went to work for a CPA.
Morel
Okay.
says, she doesn't
But I
eat
wanted
in
to
this
get back
house."
to Jacksonville
And-
because there were
and
no
so she
young people
runs in
my
there,
age
she says,
in
"Where'd you
Bradenton.
get those potatoes?" I said,
So I wanted to go
"Morel."
back to Jacksonville.
Even
So she
then, there were
ran
no
out
young
there and she
people in
said, "I
Bradenton?
told you."
Even then, there were no young people in
When you grew up, there were no young people. You're old.
I was old.
You're an old offensive tackle on the Bradenton High School football team.
Right.
Old before your
I
age.
was old. As Shannon said, we showed Shannon a picture of Mary Ann when she was 15. And she looked at that picture and looked at Mary Ann and says, "You look the same." Then she says, "I hope I don't look like this when I'm your age."
She doesn't think she looks pretty.
But anyway,
And
So,
she is a pretty
I-
little girl.
I'm working for a CPA in Sarasota, having a good time, not meeting anybody, living at home half the time. Half the time I was living with Susie and Lindsay down in Sarasota. So I decided I want to go back to Jacksonville. My friends up there wanted me to come back again. So I said, okay, let me go up there and see what I can do about a job. So I went back to the Florida Military District. And the lieutenant looks at me and he says, "Where have you been?" And I said, "I had a detour." So he said, "Well, we'll hire you." And I said, "Well, I have to pass the exam, GSA exam." He says, "No, because you've got Korean service, we can give you bonus points that you will have more points than anybody else that takes the test. So the test is just a formality. We'll go ahead and hire you, and you'll come to work for us. And then you can take the test and pass the exam and all that stuff later on." So I said, "Great, I got a job." So, as I'm prone to do, I went to see a girl. Not my girl, but I went to see a girl who worked for an employment agency. And while I was sitting there talking to her, phone rings and she picks it up, answers it, takes down the information, hangs up. It was IBM. And she said, "Would you do me a favor?" And I said, "What's that?" She said, "Would you run down to IBM and apply for this job?" And I said, "Like this?" You know,
What was this?
I didn't have I think I had Bermuda shorts on. Because it was in the summertime. You know?
Yeah, you did. You had Bermuda shorts on.
And so I said, "I can't go for a job like that." She said, "But here's the thing. I don't have any qualified candidates to send down there. And if I don't send somebody, the next time they have an opening, they won't call me. So just go down there and talk to them. And if they don't hire you, that's no big deal. You got your job with Florida Military District." And that's what I told her. I said, "Well, I got a job. I don't need to." So she said, "Just do me this favor." So I said, "Okay." I went down and interviewed for the job. And one of the things, they asked me if I had any questions. I said, "I'm an old country boy." I said, "What is it y'all do?" IBM. "What do y'all do?" And the guy says, Jim Wilson said, "Why do you ask a question like that?" And I said, "Well, I don't want to go to work for a company that when I'm 40, they're out of business." And he said, "IBM won't be out of business when you're 40. So I said, "Okay." So I leave, go back and tell whatever her name was, and drive back to Sarasota and start winding up. I was auditing some books for the city of Sarasota. Winding up that to move to Jacksonville, 1st of August, go to with for the military. And lo and behold, I get a phone call. And they're all excited. "IBM, we're offering you a job." And I said, "Offer me a job? I don't need a job, I got one." And they said, what are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to work for the Florida Military. They're going to give me a GS-12 or something like that, some rating." And I asked, they said, "Well, here's what we will offer you." And it was less money.
IBM was less money.
IBM was less money than the government. And I said, "If I take the job with you, with IBM, how much money will I be making in 6 months? Because it was very close. And Margaret Clopel said, that's up to you, because we pay for performance. The better you perform, the more money you'll make. Well, with the GS rating I had, they didn't tell me that. You would get an annual increase, but I'm not so sure. So I decided to go with IBM for less money. And I took the job. And I told the captain that I wasn't coming.
Again.
Well, the first time I didn't tell him. When I got back to Fort Jackson and they packed my bag for me, I didn't have, in fact, in my book, Kim said, of all the girls I've known coming out of my life, that Bobby Davis was her favorite. I don't know if she told you that. Anyway, Bobby Davis was a girl that I knew up in Columbia, South Carolina. Met her at the Presbyterian Church. We hung out together. But when I got my orders to go overseas, I went. I worked in personnel, and I processed paperwork for people leaving. And in order to leave the post, I had to approve that they had the proper immunizations for wherever they were going in the world. That was my job.
Yeah, our TV.
So
today,
the
our phone,
dispensary
our TV
that administered those shots, they owed me, because I would do them favors. Because if I didn't,
Christmas Day, I said Christmas Day.
if I wanted to be
Why couldn't you
hard
come
nosed,
tomorrow?
say I'm not going to do that, then it would delay people, it would make them redo stuff. And so I always felt like, why do it twice if we can take care of it now? So anyway,
Now you can have the other
when I
or
pulled
just
out of a
one.
hat that I was going to the Far East,
Yeah, the second one over.
I went and said, give me my shots.
So I could just stand here.
And I got my shots ready to go. And then, you want to hear the rest of the story?
So Mike just
I'm sitting at my desk and the phone rings, and I pick up the phone and answer it.
last.
And the guy says, hey, Matt.
Stayed a night in the
Yeah.
hospital, yeah.
He said,
Because
you wanna go to Europe?
Last
I said, what do you mean go to Europe? He says, I'm typing your orders now.
back to feeling normal.
I'm about to type AFI.
So
I can make a typographical error right now, and you'll go to Europe. And I said, how long do I have to talk
yeah,
about
his
this?
other one, he recovered very
'Cause,
well from it. But he
Jesse
said
Miller,
this one actually,
Guy from Rayford, North Carolina, we got our shots and everything, we were going together. In fact, he came to Braden with me before, and we left from Braden to go overseas. Anyway,
But,
I said I wanted to talk to him.
and he's gonna be able
When we
to
hang up, it's a done deal.
from home
Because the
virtually
next
all
keys I hit
semester.
will either be
He's not gonna
YAR,
have to go into the classroom.
Europe Army,
Good.
or AFI,
Thank goodness.
Armed Forces Far East.
Yeah, so he can really get
So,
a good recuperation.
you gotta tell him right
and
now.
not put
Yeah.
stress
I said,
on
well,
himself.
Yeah.
being raised Presbyterian,
How old is he now?
predestination,
He's
Wow.
God
let's see,
had me
December
pull out of that hat
so
AFI.
he's only 65,
So apparently
so
God
there
wants
you
me to
go.
go to the Far East.
Oh.
Yeah,
And
but
besides
I think
that,
he's retired
living in
for
Florida,
2 years.
if I ever
Is he
get
still
a
with
chance,
Seminole?
there's more of an opportunity to go to Europe on my own dollar
Now, where is that located?
than Japan.
They've married.
So I'll let the government pay for this.
Married.
Oh, they.
And he says, they're shooting at people over there. I said,
it's
yeah, I know,
your college.
but I'm not a fighter.
Yeah.
I'm not a shooter. They won't be shooting at me.
Like St. Peter,
So he says,
yeah.
okay,
So it's,
happy it was.
I guess it's Seminole State
And
College or
the
something
next
like that,
week,
whatever.
it's supposed to go 2 weeks between your boosters.
Yeah.
The next day or shortly thereafter, I went and got my boosters, which was about 6 days after my initial shots.
Still St. PJC.
I violated
When she was in
all
high
the
school, she
immunizations.
was in 10th grade because she wasn't driving.
And so I went. And it turned out to be not a bad
She
thing.
was
She was
taking
doing the area.
But I didn't get to
That's where
work
she started doing the
in
area.
Jacksonville
Yeah.
for the government, and that's how I ended up with IBM.
What was your first job at
What
IBM?
we do.
Yeah.
What we
My
do.
first job was accounts receivable,
Yeah, you want some tea?
collecting, I had accounts receivable and accounts payable. I had to do both jobs. I paid all the bills, and
Yeah, let me cut that
And
cake.
when I did that, I said, that's what I want. I want to be able to write checks all day long to pay all my bills, and then on Friday, have somebody send me the money to reimburse me for everything I spent. And you know where I am today? That's where I am. My Social Security, my IBM retirement, state retirement comes in, and I write checks to pay it. So I pay the bills, and somebody else gives me the money.
You wind up where you started.
That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted. So I worked for IBM doing that, accounts receivable and accounts payable. And one of the things I did, boring jobs, especially
Now,
accounts,
where was that, Ron? What year are you talking about?
1955.
Oh,
Ages ago.
And so accounts receivable was so boring, which you get all the checks and you clear the ones. You know what punch cards are? IBM cards.
I used them in college.
Yeah.
Well, I'd get a check from somebody, and I would reach over here in this card file, and I'd pull out the card that matches that. Then I would give it to the machine accounting unit, and they would run the reports and that too. But that was my job. It was very boring. One of the
They
things,
punch an extra hole in that card or something like that. So
Yeah,
they
no, I didn't do that.
Run it through.
and I didn't have any hanging chads. But anyway, what I did to make my job more interesting, I created a game. Okay? I would have an adding machine tape of all the.
Did they pay you for performance on this game?
Yeah, no, they didn't know about it. So what I did, I said, any check over $100, those people are playing against the checks under $100. And I'll do Monday through Friday and see who wins at the end of the week. And so by Friday, I was really anxious to get those checks and get going to see who won. But I would do that to make my job more interesting. So I did a very good job.
Should have put a bet.
Is that what you? Is
tally,
that what
put
you
a
were
little-
hired? That was your first job?
Accounts
In
receivable.
Jackson.
Was the number of checks, not
Jacksonville?
not the amount of the checks, right?
Yeah, not the number of checks, amounts of them. So anyway,
Should put a little,
I have OCD.
should have put the board, the 1 through 10 numbers, up there, and 0 through 9. Okay, which
No.
one's going to be? Over, under.
I did that
The
in
supervisor
Birmingham.
walks in, he's running a bookie joint.
That was my job in Birmingham because I did the pools
Yeah.
and the teams, the games,
Right,
pick the
right.
winners. And,
I remember they still did that in the branch.
but anyway, I've got OCD, right? So everything has to be in its box.
Including the dishwasher. There's only one way
Right.
to load the
Obsessive check
dishwasher.
disorder.
You can't have your forks and knives mixed together in the dishwasher. They got to be separate. Especially since I unload the dishwasher, I have to grab all the knives at one time.
But you can't, I would love to do that, but I don't do that because then you're.
You wasted space.
It's psychotic.
No, because then the spoons would be spooning each other and you can't get them fully clean.
Your spoons are up. And
Yeah,
first
but
of
make
all,
sure the spoons have to go up.
spoons have to be up.
That's the
Yeah.
OCD. The spoons
And
must
they
go
have to
up.
go in the
Everything
divider.
And also,
That's
I
You have a little
wash,
separator thing? that you
Yeah, a
can-
little separator thing.
I wash the dishes before I put them in.
I do too. I do too.
You're not supposed to.
I know.
Well, I do it because what I say is, if
There's
you
no
don't
man
want your
inside there scrubbing.
if you don't want your dishwasher to smell like garbage, don't put garbage in it. Well, that makes sense. So anyway, with my OCD, and his name was Bennett. Forget his first name. Bennett was in parts and supplies in the back of the building. Parts and supplies. You probably don't even know parts and supplies
Yeah.
because that was a field engineering.
That I remember parts of this place. Yeah.
Okay, parts and supplies. So he either quit or got fired. I don't know. I did my job, and so there had a vacancy. So and it was such a mess back there. I didn't even like to walk through the shop. It was such a mess. Those field engineering guys, I never did. But anyway, so he left, and Margaret Copel calls me in and says, how would you like to have that job back there? And I said, I don't. I don't want that job. That's a horrible mess. So she said, well, starting Monday, that's your job. So I give you a choice.
Yeah.
You can either
You know, you-
have your typewriter on the left side or the right side, but that's your choice. So anyway, I went
He
back
got
there.
those shelves in order.
I went back there, and this was, I would say, in the summertime. So I'd been with IBM a year. And
Mark, come sit down.
and I was having
All
lunch
right, thank you.
with Ed Belgester, who was my roommate in college. He worked for Fruit Growers Express, and you probably never heard of them. They had refrigerated cars on railroads. And they would pick the oranges and put them in this refrigerated car, ship them, whatever. And his job was to keep track of where those freight cars were. Well, I told him my dilemma about not wanting to do this lousy job in the supply room. Oh, and the other thing happened. Maybe it was 58. Must have been 58. Because one of the things that IBM wanted people to do, they wanted their salesmen to drive a new car. So they would have a car payment and look successful. Didn't matter if they didn't have enough money to eat,
Right.
but they wanted to look successful. And your wife could not work because IBM employees made enough money that their wives did not have to work. Okay.
Was that encouraged or kind of a law?
It was the law. In
Yeah.
fact, we had one
That's why your mother didn't work.
in the mid
They
50s.
changed
We had
the
a
rules
female
later
vice
on.
president, at IBM. She got married and she had to resign.
Well, they had all the system support girls. What are they called? They go back into just after the war. 'Cause
Right.
IBM was very progressive about hiring women into professional jobs.
Yes,
But
they
not
were,
married women.
but not married. They had to be
No.
single,
Yeah, I know.
and they
Well, that's
and they could
interesting
not
because-
wear.
Because they're on W3, our internal portal now, and you sign in your internal homepage, and they're always touting, all the
You get
these
the rainbow.
They get the rainbow now and all that stuff, but then he goes, well, going back, IBM hiring professional, system support women, or what they had
Well,
something.
they didn't tell you
But-
that once you got married,
Yeah.
you had to leave.
Well, I don't know.
They were single,
Yeah.
and they could not wear. They had to wear dresses. They couldn't wear an outfit like that. They couldn't wear a skirt and a sweater.
Had to be a dress.
And we had
Dress code.
MRU, machine records unit operators.
Mhm.
They would want to wear loafers instead of heels. They couldn't do that because IBM considered loafers bedroom slippers.
What?
Bedroom slippers. You had to
Oh,
wear
bedroom
high
slippers.
heels. You had to wear a dress and high
For
heels.
women, there weren't women sales people.
No.
And but all did the women work in administration, or they're just back there in the key punch room or something?
Key
Data
punch or
entry
in
and
administration, secretaries,
Yeah.
but they all had to wear, and they
Were
could
they in
not.
accounts receivable?
And
all that?
we hired Barbara Peacock. Peacock had a bleach streak in her hair. For her to get a job with IBM, she had to get rid of that streak. You could not have bleached hair at IBM.
Well, I remember when I came
Really?
in. I came into the office one morning, doing my little part of active rebellion. I wore a blue shirt.
A blue shirt?
Yeah, and go into the men's room, take care of my business, and washing my hands there. And Robbie Robinson, comes up. He's there and he's wearing his, suit and vest and wingtips and all that stuff. And he goes, "What's the matter, Calvert? You drive the bus into work today?"
Yeah. You had to
So
wear.
I kept on wearing. I'd still regularly wear a blue shirt, and then
Yeah, some of
and
them
on
are-
Fridays I'd wear a real ugly yellow tie.
In,
Ugly yellow tie Friday.
in about 1959, somewhere along there, they allowed them to wear short sleeve white shirts.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
They got rid of the long sleeve. And the salesman, until Kennedy became president, salesmen had to wear a hat.
No, really.
But when John F. Kennedy
Wasn't wearing
Wasn't
that.
wearing the hats?
didn't wear a hat, Hats
That was
went away.
okay.
The hat industry died.
Joe Williams facial hair, no beards and stuff too.
No, none of that stuff. And you couldn't have these sideburns out too far. In fact,
Yeah. Because I had like the Fu Manchu mustache,
Yeah.
like my graduation picture.
Yeah, it is. From Florida.
You know, oh, it looked good the further down it went for me, but I had that when I graduated, like the night before.
You shaved it off.
I put
I
a
don't know if it was against the rules at that point, but I just decided.
but I put a pencil on my ear one time when I was working in supplies, and I was told you can't have a pencil in your ear.
You can't have a pencil?
Well, you can't
You
have
know
it.
how you lay it on your
Yeah.
ear sometime?
You could have it in your pocket here, but you couldn't wear it on your ear. But anyway, I did this thing, and I was talking to Ed about my dilemma. About I don't like that job; it's a mess. It's a bunch of whatever. And Kelly, I got married, and then I had a baby. Well, all of a sudden, I'm beholding to IBM, so they can kind of treat you. And that's when I went back to supplies. They try to get you in a position where you can't say no. They say, "This is your job." Like people at the Cape, they say, "Your job is in Huntsville, Alabama." Bye. So anyway,
It's not,
I
that's where
talked-
I grew up. It's not a bad town.
yeah, not a bad time.
Everybody's dad's a
So
rocket
Ed
scientist.
said, we have an opening. Charleston and Western Carolina Railroad has an opening in Augusta. So you can have that job up in Augusta, and it pays more than what you're making at IBM. And I said, let me think about this. And I was renting, had not bought a house yet. I was renting. And so I get a call from my manager. And I say, well, if I go in there and get chewed out one more time, I'm going to tell them I'm moving to Augusta.
Yeah.
So I'll go in there, and I'm prepared, and the announcement was, you've been doing such a good job, we're going to give you a raise. And all of a sudden I'm thinking, the money, more money in Augusta isn't quite, I mean, it's still more than we're making, but it's not such a big number anymore.
Yeah.
And so I said, thank you very much. And I go back and I'm thinking about, what is this? I got to figure this out. In the meantime, my job's not getting any better. So it's coming up toward Christmas. And I guess it was like September that they told me I got a raise. Then in November, they called me again. Called me in. And they said, want to let you know you're doing such a good job, we're going to give you another raise. And we're going to give you a raise. And so I said, oh, okay. Now it's out. I'm not moving to Augusta. And so I decided, all right, I've got to get buckled down and get things cleaned up in this thing before year end. So my boss says, stuff back there is so bad, you're going to have to work overtime every day through the end of the year. So I said, okay, I can do that because I get paid overtime. And so I start doing this, and this goes on for about 2 weeks and can't afford to pay overtime. And so I get called in and chewed out for putting in too much overtime. And so I go back to my room about the size of this house, and I sit down and I look around there and I think. And one of the first things I did was I took the paper and I sorted it down from time equipment to typewriters to accounting machines. So when I had to hunt for something, I had a shorter stack. If it was concerning time equipment, I just looked at this stack because I got OCD. So I'm told, you can't work overtime anymore. So I went back there and I said, okay, can't work overtime. I opened up a couple typewriter boxes and I took everything in there, every piece of paper, put them in the box, sealed it up, and put it back in the warehouse. somebody would come in and say, hey, I ordered a part and it hasn't come in yet. And I said, it'll be here tomorrow. I'd call Atlanta and say, I got an emergency. I need this part tomorrow. And so I went from 3 months behind in work to caught up.
Because you just ordered everything?
Yeah. Anytime anybody wants something, it was an emergency.
You just did a rush order on everything? So you didn't-
Everything.
What did you do all of the inventory? You spent your time cleaning up the inventory then? Or you didn't, you got rid of all your inventory?
I got rid
Did
of
you
all.
tell them about the time you threw all those boxes away?
That's what I'm telling them
Oh,
about.
that's
So you started
that is
throwing
a
out your
funny
inventory.
story. Then
Yeah.
you just
And
packed everything up. and
so
threw
the
it away.
auditor comes. And the auditor comes in about August. And he wants to see the records for last year. And so I said, okay, I'll show them to you. And I said, see those typewriter boxes? Those are the records from last year. And he said, what do you mean? And so I tell him my story. This job, the guy left, and it was in such a mess that I did not have time to do 40 hours of work and clean up the mess from months
Because they
back.
weren't paying me overtime.
And so I said, anything you want is in that box. You tell me, and I'll get it down, and we'll hunt for it. And he said, leave it up there. So he wrote his report saying that for that year, which would have been 59. Yeah. No, it must have been the rest of 58. Anyway, said everything was great, but the prior year was unavailable, whatever. I don't recall what he said. That's not me.
So they get written up?
Yeah, they wrote it up, but it was like, well, when I was in Tallahassee, the Navy Mine Defense Lab was moving a computer from one room to the other, and it was a purchase. So we had a maintenance agreement on it. And the way it works is you stop the maintenance agreement, and then it's on a per hour basis to move the computer.
Get on for the day.
So then you move the computer on an hourly basis and then put it back on maintenance. And then you do all this billing.
Does it work?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you very
So you
much.
got downtown now? Alright, I just
What
want to
about
go
that
ahead and check
Yeah.
your connections outside.
Call their house, man.
Yeah,
My
pick
phone's
that
in the
up
truck.
and see if you hear something.
You're a
You
dog.
got,
Use one of these
You're
things?
you got downtime?
Yeah.
You got downtime?
No.
No downtime?
Oh, wait. There it goes.
Okay.
Can you call your house? Dial your house.
Yeah, I'm calling it now. Go ahead and hang it up for me, please. It's ringing busy.
There it goes. There it goes.
Alright.
Okay.
Didn't hear me.
That's good. What was it?
It was something with the account. Something on the.
They thought they'd unsubscribe from
Didn't
it or
pay your
something?
bill?
I don't know what it
Is that big
was. But
deal?
yeah.
Would you like a cookie for the road?
Oh, no, thank you. No, thank you.
All right. Thank you very
Alright,
much.
I'm gonna go ahead and sit this back in here. I'll be outside, just checking the connections, make sure everything is up to date.
Oh, good, because sometimes things outside get haywire. Yeah, we've had that happen before where the back was out in the street,
Oh.
along the driveway and not in the house, so they have to check both of them.
Thanks again for coming out on
Thank you.
Christmas.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas, guys.
Bye.
So then, after the dust settled, the next thing I knew, Charlie Warren, you met Charlie Warren, was promoted out of Jacksonville to the manager in Savannah. And he was talking to Margaret Propel and said, I got a horrible mess. And so she said, I'll send you somebody. And so she talked to the district, and they moved me from Jacksonville to Savannah. And his situation was like I took over in Jacksonville. It was a mess. So, and one of the things I did,
Everybody was
I think it's
stressed
the
last week.
story of your life, Ron. You get to bring in and clean up the messes.
yeah,
That's what they had to do at the church, when they had the embezzlement,
I think that's
that big embezzlement, and you know what, that lady's
He's just
still walking
a
around,
just a
or
janitor.
should she go to prison?
Well, she went to prison for a year, But her mother is one of my best friends. And her mother started our art class. She hardly didn't say a word because everybody knew. And we never brought it up. And now she's one of my sweetest friends. And I feel so sorry for her, but her daughter has gotten out of prison, got a job, has a little boy.
Was that the only one that got, was it just her?
Yeah, she was the one that did it all. And her parents wrote a check for $84,000 to pay the church back for part of the money.
Wow.
Yeah, Janice and her husband wrote a check.
Wow.
And this week they're up in Tennessee at their mountain house. Yeah, and took the whole family up there for a week.
But when I got to Savannah, we had a 2-story building, and the second floor was a mess. And I don't know how big a mess it is.
Is
Because,
it the parts room or something, or just
no, just storage.
storage?
And so Charlie says, I want you to go up there and clean out the second floor. And I had him bring a dump truck and park it outside the window. And I threw stuff out the second floor into this dump truck. Everything except this book.
What is it?
Oh,
What does it say? Think
It's-
Magazine Diary. Oh my
Think
God.
Magazine's diary of World War II.
Oh, you found that book there, in there?
Yeah. Oh,
My goodness.
somebody just recently was talking to me about Deuce.
Deuce,
Ducey.
yeah. I said my friend's second daughter was named Ducey. And
Her
he
second,
said
and she said that, and I thought, well,
he knew somebody whose daughter
This-
was named Deuce
her name was Deuce Jones.
because she was the second daughter.
Well, I don't
Deuce.
know.
Oh, you don't
I just
know?
thought that was odd that she had a name,
Yeah.
Deuce Jones. This when I was in high
Okay.
school
all right.
at the big house in Bradenton.
Mm-hmm.
Big house. Okay, and this is some years later.
It looks like you're in a service.
I am.
Yeah.
This was made in Korea,
Yeah.
You see? Mm-hmm.
and the PIO office sent this to the Bradenton Herald.
Yeah, went to the Bradenton Herald.
And
He
they
was
put
the
it-
soldier of the month.
Okay.
I was the hero of the month. Now, have you ever heard of Ernie Pyle?
Yes.
This is a picture of Ernie Pyle, and it should be a mark there. I don't have my, I do have my glasses.
Yeah, Laurel fixed his glasses Sunday. They fell apart. So she went in there and she,
Okay,
Got
here,
it going.
here is Ernie Pyle, the World War II famous
Right there?
war correspondent, yeah.
This one?
And that was a couple, well, on the back it says a couple weeks before he was killed in Okinawa.
oh my
This
gosh.
might be worth something.
Well, I tried to send that to the Tampa Tribune
Well,
Yeah,
for the anniversary of the.
send it to a real journalist.
Yeah, Tribune or doesn't exist anymore.
But I tried to send that to them and ask them
Some
if
type of historical society.
would they
yeah.
want to do an article on Ernie
World War
Pyle
II.
and war correspondence.
Who was
because,
that? Leyland Hawes?
uh,
That did all the historical things?
Yeah, Leyland
Yeah,
Hawes.
Leyland
But
Hawes.
I sent it to Steve.
Steve Otto?
No, Steve